He snaps it, runs it, throws it, and catches it. 44, Tyler Warren does it all and has now entered the Heisman Trophy conversation.
I've been talking about him being the best tight end in college football, but the reality is he's now part of a conversation of one of the best players in all of college football.
The walk-on kicker boots the walk-off winning kick. Ryan Barker splits the uprights and sparks a coast-to-coast celebration.
It felt good in my head that I was going to make the kick, and when I saw it go through, it wasn't really a surprise at that point.
And Penn State captures their first ever victory at the LA Coliseum. Why PSU fans couldn't wait to see this historic venue. This is Nittany Game Week. Well, hello everyone and welcome to Nittany Game Week. I'm Todd Sadowski alongside former Nittany Lions coaches Jay Paterno and Tom Bradley. Penn State shows resilience, competitive fire, and a cold-blooded freshman kicker finishes off the Trojans in the Coliseum. What a thrilling win to complete the first half of the season undefeated.
Well, at halftime it looked like, again, 20-6, but as has been the case this year, the second half has been really good for Penn State, and they got the win, and it doesn't matter where or how, wins are wins.
Doesn't matter how many either.
No, absolutely. Just keep winning.
Just keep winning. Just goes on as thing as a W.
Yeah, well, we could dedicate the entire episode of the show to all of the things Tyler Warren does for the Nittany Lions. We discuss his above and beyond efforts, detail the heroics of place kicker Ryan Barker, and dive deeper into the defense's part of this huge road win in our opening drive. Very entertaining game and very cool to see Penn State and their road whites take the field at the Coliseum. Down 30-23 late in the fourth. Drew Aller and Julian Fleming connect on a fourth down play to keep the drive alive. A few plays later, they would do it again. Eventually, they tie the game on a touchdown pass to Nick Singleton, and it all leads up to that overtime winning kick from walk-on redshirt freshman Ryan Barker. What a finish.
Well, I think the big thing is now you've got a quarterback who's had that drive he had to have at the end of the game, made 2 fourth-down throws. That's a big step in terms of confidence. It's a big step of maturity. And, again, we'll see how that goes from now on. But that's Penn State fans should feel really good about that part of it.
Especially because when he did it now, your quarterback, you want to be the leader. When he takes that kind of a drive, he is the leader.
Dealt a lot with special teams. Jay mentioned maturity and confidence. How about Ryan Barker, what he was able to do? Not just the last one, 4 field goals in that atmosphere.
That's incredible. And, you talk about somebody now that when you said the word confidence, I think he's got a lot of it.
No doubt about it. And once USC missed their overtime field goal attempt, the Nittany Lions run the ball to try and get some more yards, but they eventually set up Barker, and he delivers.
I remember them icing. I found the point where I wanted to aim the kick, and from there it just felt good in my head that I was going to make the kick, and when I saw it go through, it wasn't really a surprise at that point.
They tried to ice him, but, it's just a credit to his confidence and his demeanor. He's super, he's the same person every day, and I'm super happy for him that he was able to enjoy that moment and, deliver us the win.
How about this guy? How about that guy is right. The walk-on walks off. USC in the Coliseum. Unbelievable finish to what could be a pivotal victory in Penn State's regular season.
Well, we've talked about all those guys. You got to talk about number 44, Tyler Warren. I mean, we're going to start our own Warren Commission because he's like a magic bullet doing things that physics tell you can't happen. But really, what an advantage to have that guy. And really, without him, this is a very different Saturday afternoon in the Coliseum.
If he doesn't get votes for the Heisman, something is wrong. That's all I'm going to say. I know that's not the sexy position that they like to vote for, but what he's doing, it's incredible.
And it's really creative the way Coach Kotelnicki is using his skills. We're not saying he's the leading candidate, not insinuating he's going to be invited to New York for the ceremony just yet. As we show you highlights from the same game in which he pitches it, throws it, runs it, then, of course, show you the play where 44 snaps it and catches the touchdown over the defender in the end zone. Tyler Warren is part of the Heisman Trophy conversation.
Well, no question, because you can show all these highlights. And even on the one where he snapped the ball, the kid from USC was in position to make the play. He makes the play. It wasn't necessarily the diagram. It was the individual effort by him.
There it is right there as he goes over top of the defender.
what can you say? He's getting my vote for the Heisman. I don't have a vote, but if I did, I'd vote for him.
You got something else for him a little later. 17 catches for 224 yards, 1 for throwing the ball. Coach Franklin says the stats don't even tell the whole story. Warren continues to become more and more involved in everything the Nittany Lions do on offense.
That doesn't even count what he's doing in the running game. He's got a pass, what he's doing blocking. I've been talking about him being the best tight end in college football, but the reality is he's now part of a conversation of one of the best players in all of college football.
We practice a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different stuff a lot of guys do on our offense, and this week was, I was in a lot of different places, but I think it was really just, our game plan in general and just trusting that and Coach K calling a great game, so it was good.
And another play a little bit under the radar early on, 3rd and 1, while Aller acts like he's having trouble hearing. Warren slides under center, takes the snap, pushes ahead for the first down, innovative and effective. And you guys have seen enough games to know it's rare when you lose the turnover battle and toss 3 interceptions to win the game. That's where the defense comes in and minimizes the damage. They only allow a pair of field goals after the picks thrown by Aller, and the Trojans had good field position after those picks, Tom. So it was a great job by the D to keep it to just 6 points.
Anytime you can hold them what they did there, that's huge because, like you said, 6 points. They buckled up, made it happen. Could have been major damage right there.
Yeah, USC is loaded with top-end skills guys. They allow 30 points, but get stingy when it matters the most, including the overtime possession when they force a long field goal attempt that they missed to set up Ryan Barker's game winner. Coming up, we reach the midway point of the regular season. Just spent some time near Hollywood. Our road to victory takes a cinematic approach with a quick preview reel of what's to come in the second half of the year. You're watching Nittany Game Week.
Roadmap to Victory is sponsored by the R&R family of companies.
Well, welcome back to Nittany Game Week. 6 games, 6 victories. That's the number that truly matters for the Nittany Lions. Prepare for your opponent and figure out a way to beat them. Coach Bradley, Coach Paterno, a deeper dive into some of the numbers from the first half shows us how they're getting the job done and some areas to address in their final bye week of the regular season.
Well, this bye week falls at a great time. It's exactly halfway through the season. 6 games gone, 6 games left to go. So let's take a look at some of the numbers of 2023 versus 2024. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Penn State, one of the things that's surprising is their scoring's down a little bit, Tom. What's one of the major factors there?
They're getting field goals instead of touchdowns.
Yeah, the red zone touchdown percent.
The red zone touchdown is the biggest thing, and they've got to score when they get that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean if that's one thing we're being critical of, that's not a bad thing. But the run offense has improved, the pass offense has improved, but the turnovers have gone up, Tom, and that could be a problem against some of your better teams.
Yeah, that's one of the things. You don't want to turn it over and give people field position.
Yeah, now let's take a look at the defense. Again, a really good defensive unit last year, pretty much the same. The one thing, Tom, again, they have improved in the red zone a lot on defense.
They sure have. That's a big jump right there, and so they're losing out on the offense, they're picking it up on the defense.
Yeah, no question. So let's take a look at some of them a little more in depth. Numbers are very, very similar. The number of sacks have gone down, tackles for losses, those disruptive plays and turnovers. That's something to look for in the second half. Now let's talk about what has happened and where we've been and where we're going the first 6 games. Tom, you mentioned this off camera. The road wins are really, really big there.
They sure are. That's one of the things. They've been on the road. They've done a great job on the road. As you know, the road's not an easy place to play.
And the record not very good, and that's about to change. The heavier lifting is coming. You go from a 14-22 record of opponents to 21-7, and you have tough opponents: Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington. Those are some teams you got to be aware of. And now let's talk about those things. Let's take a look at the coming attractions, so to speak. When you look at who we've played and who Penn State is going, the statistics are all better. They're playing better offenses, better defenses, so they'll have to accelerate what they're doing in terms of both sides of the ball, bigger challenges. And as we mentioned those challenges, let's talk about and take a quick sneak peek. I know we don't like to look ahead, but starting October 26th, in Madison, Wisconsin, at night, Tom, always a lot of fun.
And they had to make it a night game.
They had to make it a night game.
That place would be wild.
Yeah, Wisconsin's offense has become resurgent as of late. The last couple of weeks, made some changes at quarterback and at running back, and they've become a much different offensive football team. Now, after that, then you start talking about Washington. On November 9th, the Huskies come into town, and two names you might want to look at: offensive coordinator Brennan Carroll, defensive coordinator Steve Belichick. Tom, they may know a thing or two about coaching.
I think they've been around football a long time, those two guys.
Yeah, so you're going to see some things on both sides of those ball. That is a team that has played really well at times, but they've hurt themselves with missed field goals and missed fourth downs. If they put those things together, that could be a really difficult situation for Penn State. Let's talk about Purdue. Going out to Purdue on the 16th. Purdue has really, really struggled. I can expect that one to be the same way, but again, that's another one you got to show up. Now, November 23rd, Tom, I know you like this one because you're one of those guys always coaching the sideline. At Minnesota, November 23rd, outdoors. Tom, you got to pack the long johns, right?
I think it will be very cold that day.
No question. And Minnesota is a team that is 2 plays from really being in the mix. They missed a field goal against North Carolina. They beat USC. And then November 30th, the season finale at home against Maryland. Tom, every year Maryland talks about how they're going to come in and beat Penn State, and what happens?
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. I completely agree with that. They put up big offensive numbers. They beat Penn State in 2020. Since then, they've been outscored by a very wide margin, 112-29. They've been outscored by Penn State. Oh, and by the way, we skipped over this little game on November the 2nd. As we talk about the Buckeyes coming to town, do not be fooled by that Oregon loss. Those are two really good football teams. Everybody talks about the wideout Jeremiah Smith. You got Ibuka, you got Judkins, you got Henderson at tailback who can really, really run. And don't be fooled. They also, with their top 10 offense, they've got a top 10 defense. Now, sneak peeks this weekend. You want to get a look at some of these teams. Here's where they're playing. 3 of them are off, so you can get a little scouting report of your own as you watch them this weekend. And Todd, that's what I'll be doing on Saturday.
Thank you, coaches. The trip out west is now an annual thing for Penn State, and the Nittany Lions fans are all about it. We caught up with someone the day before the game, hanging around the Coliseum, trying to catch a glimpse of the venue. They were excited about the game at USC and future visits to UCLA, Washington, and Oregon.
I've already visited every existing Big Ten stadium, so now we've added these 4 teams to the conference, so my plan is to go to all of them. So I think they're playing UCLA in the Rose Bowl next year. Wherever they're playing, take the trip and come out and see all these stadiums and get a chance to meet some new Penn State fans that are on the West Coast, so it should be a lot of fun.
It is UCLA next year, at Washington in 2026, at Oregon in 2027, and back to the Coliseum in 28. Our Impact interview guest this week knows a lot about the West Coast additions to the conference. Former Pac-12 Network and now Big Ten Network host Ashley Adamson joins us with her unique perspective on how the new programs are adapting to their new home. We'll talk with Ashley when we come back here on Nittany Game Week.
Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. We have been looking forward to having our next guest on all season long. We think the timing is perfect to do it midway point of the year because she has a unique perspective on the 4 West Coast teams that have joined the Big Ten Conference. Ashley Adamson was part of the Pac-12 Network from its inception in 2012, and after the recent changes, joined the Big Ten Network to offer her expertise. Ashley also hosts her own podcast, Your Mom, where she talks about a whole range of things well beyond sports. Ashley, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, so we're halfway through, like we mentioned, through this first newly expanded football season. Before we turn to the second half, I want to ask you what are some of the things that maybe met your expectations and some of the things that fell a little bit short. This is our Impact interview, so really the question is, what about the impact, right, for the 4 new schools, for them, and also for the teams that they've had to face?
Yeah, I mean, that is the big thing. And I would say coming in, right, change is always hard and people aren't sure exactly what it's going to look like. And there was a lot of excitement and anticipation for what it could look like with these 4 new schools and all the debate about style of play and what would these 4 new programs bring to the league? Would the West Coast schools be ready for the physicality of the Big Ten? And I think, guys, with a relatively small sample size, I think the short answer is yes. It's been everything that you've wanted and more. If you just look at strictly the record, 6-9 in league play, which isn't anything to write home about yet, but Part of that obviously is an 0-4 UCLA team that's finding its way under a new head coach. But the marquee games and Washington's win at home over Michigan and the scene there in Seattle, Oregon's win over Ohio State this past week and the scene in Eugene, those carry a ton of weight. And then you look at USC Penn State from week 7, and that game, I mean, if you're a Trojan fan, like it was the third excruciating conference loss. But for Penn State to go on the road and to win that game in the fashion that they did, that fourth quarter drive to force overtime was just an absolute thing of beauty. Like, put that in the Louvre. It has been as entertaining as we could have hoped for in the expansion era.
Ashley, it's Jay here, and I want to talk a little bit about you personally in terms of you started with the Pac-12 Network 12 years ago. You began your podcast, Your Mom, and now you're with the Big Ten Network. For all the on-camera work that you do, how important is it for you and others that would like to do what you do to have the ability to write and draft your own stories?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I had a professor say to me that the most important thing that you need to be able to do if you want to work in media is to be able to write, right? Like, writing is at the core of all of it. And I think that knowing the power and the impact of stories, like in our business, guys, we get so bogged down, and I do it and I have to fight against it and all the numbers. And the stats are interesting and the numbers paint a picture and you can learn a lot from analytics, but our brains are not wired to remember stats and numbers. Like, our brains are wired to care about and know stories and remember stories. So I think that has been one of the best things about coming in and covering this league is all of the stories that I've gotten to learn along the way. And, you know, it's been a while since I started a new job, and you just think about all of the stories that you got to tell and all the stories that you're going to get to tell. It is by far the best part of what we do.
Hey, this is Tom Bradley. How much of an adjustment do you think is still ahead for the Pac-12 schools like USC and UCLA in order to become part of the upper echelon of the Big Ten?
Yeah, and I think you look at all 4 of the new schools, and each of them are in a little bit of a different place. Like, Oregon is, in the lead in terms of what Dan Lanning has been able to bring in and do, and the blueprint that he came in with and the plan. He said when he came in, I mean, this is a guy that came from the SEC and knew what it looked like up front to have teams that can really match you in the trenches. And he knew what was coming into the Big Ten. And so I think for Oregon, they're ahead of the curve. And we saw that in that they were able to beat Ohio State in an epic game on Saturday. But I think you then look at the bottom, and UCLA, they've got a lot of growing pains and they've got a lot of work to do. Now, did they show signs of life, and could they have easily beaten Minnesota? Yes, absolutely. So that thing you hope is headed in the right direction. Washington is a really interesting one to me. You know, we got to know Jedd Fisch really well when he was at Arizona, and watching what he was able to do in Tucson, taking a team that won 1 game his first year as a first-time head coach and having them ranked, top 11 in the country by the time he left in his 3rd year. It was remarkable, the turnaround. And in this new world of college athletics that we're in with the transfer portal and NIL, the rebuild time for programs is different than it used to be. And so I think Washington is going to be a team, once he brought in so many new guys and he's got a great staff with a ton of NFL pedigree on it. But Seattle is a place that I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what the next year or 2 looks like under Jedd Fisch. It's been awesome to see how they have matched up and the battles that they've been back and forth, even at this early point in the season.
We have much more at NittanyGameWeek.com. We need to step aside from the TV show for a quick break. Make sure to go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the entire conversation with Ashley Adamson of the Big Ten Network, along with other web-exclusive content like our depth chart and Nittany Game Week podcast. And up next, it's an award-winning week for Tyler Warren. That includes our scrap medal. Yes, we're giving it away. We also tell you the list of other awards he earns for his Herculean effort in the Coliseum. We're heading into the final minutes of Nittany Game Week.
The Nittany Game Week Depth Chart is brought to you by Burke and Bradley Orthopedics. Located in Pittsburgh, Burke and Bradley Orthopedics is a comprehensive sports medicine practice, providing patients with the most current and innovative approaches in diagnosis and treatment. Scrap Metal is sponsored by the We Are Inn, voted #1 game day restaurant in Center County. Follow us on Facebook and visit thewearein.com or call for dinner or room reservations.
No need for suspense this week, Tom. Senior tight end Tyler Warren collects a lot of weekly awards this week, including your scrap medal.
I think I called you in the fourth quarter to tell you that was the winner.
Yes, we knew ahead of time.
Yeah, we did. Tyler was named the National Player of the Week by the Mackey Award, Paul Horning Award, Maxwell Award in the Associated Press, recognized as the Big Ten Co-Offensive Player of the Week, set a career high with 17 catches, which is a Penn State record for receptions, and ties the FBS record. His 224 yards receiving is a Penn State and Big Ten record for tight ends. Tyler graduated in the fall of 2023 with a bachelor's degree in advertising, public relations, and is pursuing a second degree in telecommunications. It was a really hard pick this week. It was really tough.
What an amazing performance, not to be forgotten anytime soon.
All right. Last week, our question was about which USC Heisman Trophy running back Penn State had limited to just 85 yards in the Fiesta Bowl. Marcus Allen was the answer. We had two winners, Jane Ardner from York, Pennsylvania, and Chuck Kent from Palmyra, PA. We picked two. Now, this week, because we're talking about tight ends and Penn State's Tyler Warren, which Penn State tight end finished fourth in the Heisman balloting, becoming the first tight end in the modern era to finish in the top 5 in Heisman voting?
Appropriate, we should be continuing to talk about the tight end position. Nittany Game Week is much more than a television show. Make sure you check out our depth chart at nittanygameweek.com. The depth chart, a collection of businesses that support the show, provide our viewers with places to eat, travel, and shop, or professional services owned and operated by people with a special connection to Penn State. And if you haven't noticed yet, we got a lot to share with you when it comes to college football. It doesn't all fit into this 30-minute window. Make sure to check out nittanygameweek.com for web-exclusive content like the depth chart and our Nittany Game Week podcast. And that is also the location where you can show us your spirit and submit your pride picks. We've received some really good ones from traveling out to LA. They're 6-0 with a week to get ready for the second half sprint. For Jay and Tom, I'm Todd. Thanks so much for watching Nittany Game Week. We'll see you next time.